Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to all of you. It is Tuesday, September the 1st, 2020, which means it's time to get nerdy. Welcome to episode 155 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest gaming podcast in the multiverse, brought to you, of course, by your two co-hosts, myself, Maction, lover of games and lover of everybody, and I'm joined by not just the first option, but the best option, Mr. Nice Guy 425, also known as Lam Galuka, the stand-up comedian and stand-up guy. Our 1-hour mission to bring you news, history, issues, crowdfunding, trivia, and lawsuits that are important to video games. And of course, we are delighted to be sponsored today by Game Insider magazine. So I should actually roll that intro. Just one second.
He'll do that right now.
All right, and we are back. So once again, welcome everybody. Sorry, the order of operations a little bit rusty because
you were on vacay.
It's true. I was on vacation, and it takes a minute or two to get reacclimated to to everything in stuff. You get that vacation brain going on. You know what I mean?
That's right. Speaking of vacation, how was it, man? What did you and the missus do? Anything crazy? Anything interesting? Any beautiful sights? That's a softball question.
Plenty of beautiful sights. We spent the majority of our time in and around the Black Hills of South Dakota. So that'd be the southwestern portion of South Dakota.
Awesome.
We were there, for those of you who are keeping track at home, we were there, I guess, a week or two after Sturgis. So the craziness of the region had already come to a decisive end. But we hiked, we checked out two national parks, one state park, and one national monument. Those would have been Jewel Cave, Wind Cave, Custer State Park, and Mount Rushmore, and of course the Black Hills National Forest. So I guess we got 5 of those. And as you know, I like to collect those little tokens from the from the national parks and monuments.
Sure, yeah.
So I beefed up my Midwest collection just a little bit, which was
nice,
very cool. But we kept a very low key type of vacation. We're not the people who like to do that sort of, every single moment has to have something planned.
Nope, me neither.
You need to have time to just go back to whatever room you're staying in and relax and make the world go away. So yeah, I would say it was a delightful success.
Dude, that's awesome, man. And I'm sure you're back and rejuvenated and just ready to go. Now, shout out to our guest last week, Spennis, who came in, killed it, and had a really good time with him, man. We got all 3 of the nerd trivia questions right last week, Mac, just because Spennis was here. So we had a really, really good show. And other than that, man, I have nothing that can top a beautiful South Dakota vacation. So I say we do what we do best and hop right into the gaming news, my friend. What do you think about that?
Let's do it. What kind of news do you have for us, Mr. Nice Guy?
Well, we've got a lot of really interesting stuff, and I want to start off with something that's gaming adjacent. We typically don't get too much into the PC stuff, even though we both love our PC gaming. But today, Nvidia held an event, and they announced their new graphics cards. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about them because I'm very excited. Now, if you're in the chat, let us know what you think about these as well. This is from tomshardware.com. It says, Nvidia just announced the GeForce RTX 3070 and other GPUs that use the new Ampere architecture, and the great news is that pricing hasn't radically changed from the current 20 series. Now, Mac, this is what's interesting to me. We're going to be getting the RTX 3070, which is 8 gigabytes GDDR6 at 16 GDPS. I don't know what that means, but it sounds super fancy. I'm going to have to ask you to translate that later. It has double the cores and 20.4 teraflops. It is coming in October 2020, and here's the thing. The price is going to be $499. Now, what makes this interesting is that is less expensive than the 2080 Ti, which is a $1,200 graphics card, but supposedly this one's going to be faster. How do they pull this off? I got to know. Do you have any insight into that? Like, it's so much less expensive, but a better card than the previous gen, or at least faster.
I mean, they're as to how they're able to do it, I don't know if I could pin it down to one thing, but it's a combination of a lot of things. New architectures and things like that make a big difference. For example, one of the things that they tend to do with things, and I haven't seen the specs on this. I'm just general shot in the dark on computer stuff. But
Sure.
usually, they'll tend to shrink the die size, which means you can fit more transistors inside per square unit of area. And doing that means that as long as it's not prohibitively expensive to go smaller, you can actually pack more power into a smaller
Package.
factor.
Well,
Yeah, smaller package.
here's the interesting thing is that at least the largest, or I should say the best version of these new cards is actually going to be bigger than the 2080 Ti. It's going to take up 3 slots in your PC. This thing is going to be a beast. Now, just to give you a couple more numbers, it says that theoretically the RTX 3070 has 43% more computing power than the 2080 Ti. And it also has 18% more ray tracing performance. Now, I was watching a video of this being presented, and it showed this marble game where like a marble is rolling through the world. It looked like straight up real life. Like these graphics cards are able to do 8K resolution, which barely anyone has access to. But Mac, and this is a really like almost like a stroking your ego type of question as a PC master race guy. Why is anyone buying a console if they don't already have an Epic PC? If they don't have an Epic PC, I love console gaming, but I mean, come on now.
Sure. I can't answer that question. Not and still even attempt to maintain an air of, non or of objectivity rather. So that's a trap right there.
It is. I was thinking about it today, man. I mean, I love my PC gaming. I love my console gaming. You can use a controller on your PC. I mean, you can play Xbox Game Pass on your PC. A PC is a console that you can surf the internet effectively with. So I guess I just don't understand. Um, and I never really knew until I was able to customize my own PC and you were able to come help me build it. So now I totally get it. Um, Graphics card wise, like I said, that one's going to be $499. The 2080, or rather the 3080, I believe is going to be $699, and the 3090, which is the one that takes up 3 slots, $1,499, Mac. That's more than a lot of people, than most people probably spend on their whole PC.
Well, I think that's the answer as to why someone would go for a console rather than a PC. Especially if it's the same price for just the graphics card, because there's a whole lot more to the workings of a computer. And Ishmobile, thank you for that observation.
Yeah, well, obviously cost is a factor, right?
Yeah.
But they last a lot longer and you can upgrade them incrementally and kind of keep them going longer. So in a sense, you may pay less over time, right? We'll see. I don't know. Anyway, moving on to our next news story. Let's talk a little bit about backwards compatibility. This is on GameInformer.com. Now, Mac, we're still waiting for details on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, and we're waiting for price, we're waiting for release date, we're waiting for all kinds of stuff. But it was mentioned recently that the PlayStation 5 lacks backwards compatibility for PS1, PS2, PS3 games, according to a Ubisoft support site. This tweet came from Wario64 on August 31st. It says it's not backwards compatible, blah, blah, blah. And then he shows this graphic that says transitioning PlayStation 4 titles to next gen versions. There's a question. It says, how does upgrading the PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 work? And the answer, which I believe this comes from the Ubisoft support page, says, as part of their next gen upgrade process, I just accidentally opened the tweet. Let's close that. PlayStation offers a number of features. Jeez, man. This technology, Mac, I tell you what, when it works, it works. When it wants to troll you, it trolls you. PlayStation. Bottom line: PlayStation 4 players will be able to join multiplayer games with PlayStation 5 players. Backwards compatibility will be available on PS4, but not for anything else. So, are you like? Is this a feature that matters to you when you're looking at consoles? I know that you don't really buy the most current stuff. you're really a retro guy as far as that goes. But is backwards compatibility something that's a deal breaker for you if you were to get one of these?
Deal breaker? No. Deal maker? Definitely.
Deal maker.
Because, yeah, well, I mean, because if I'm going to get a console, I'm going to get it because of the new games that are coming out, not with an eye to the old games.
Right.
But if I'm debating between two platforms and one has the type of has backwards compatibility and the other one does not, I'm going to lean more heavily to that one side, just because I feel like I feel like getting the opportunity to still play old games that I like on a current gen console is valuable to me.
Yeah, and honestly, there was a time when I would not buy all the consoles. I would just buy one because I would just play one. And now, let's say I skip a gen, like for example, I skipped the PlayStation 3 and I got the PlayStation 4. Um, I wanted to go back and play all those PS3 games that I missed, right? I
Yeah.
had been able to experience The Last of Us, but I had not been able to experience many of the other games, like the Uncharted games, for example. And while they were not backwards compatible, there was a collection available, and that was really, really attractive to me as a feature. So I think that this is a bigger deal than Sony is allowing themselves to think that it is. But I really don't think it's a deal breaker because they do have, for now at least, things like PS Now that allows people to stream those old games. And a lot of people still have their old PS3, that plays those PS1 and PS2 games if you have the launch one. So we'll have to wait and see what shakes out with sales. Let's do, you know what, Mac? There's a lot of news stories this week that are kind of like redundant, if that makes sense. Like we got some Xbox news, and then we got that there's an Xbox showcase. I'm not going to read both of those stories. Let's just end on this one.
Well, let's pretend for a moment though that I know
Yeah.
nothing about this Xbox showcase coming up. What are we expecting?
Well, it's so basically there's going to be a Tokyo Game Show in 2020, right? It's going to be all digital. And one of the days at least is going to feature some Xbox stuff. So this is on IGN.com. It says that the full Tokyo Game Show schedule has been revealed and an Xbox Game Showcase will kick off the 4-day event. No word on what will be revealed during the event, but the schedule says Xbox stream will be about an hour long. Other presenters include Square Enix, Sega, Capcom, Konami, and Bandai Namco. And it kicks off September 24th. So I mean, obviously, we're hoping we see price. We're hoping we get some more details. I don't know what else Xbox could show that would interest you, or me even. Anything, maybe they come out with Mega Man 13 that's only available on Xbox, and then Maction has to get an Xbox at that point.
I suppose so, although it would be Mega Man 12 if they're doing mainline series.
I wanted to see if I could catch you with that. I almost got you, but you didn't fall for that at all.
No, not even a little bit. But I mean, yeah, a new Mega Man would be cool, but I don't know as we would likely see it on Xbox, although that's not really important to the story. What is important is that that's coming up, Tokyo Game Show. I think I would probably tune in for the Capcom. Maybe they would announce a new Mega Man.
Yeah, and it is rumored that there's a new Monster Hunter coming for a Nintendo Switch exclusively. So we may get some kind of cool stuff from this. And especially since it is in Tokyo and Monster Hunter is huge in Japan, right?
Mm.
So we or in Asia. So all of Asia. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. How much longer can Sony and Nintendo or Sony and Microsoft go without telling us the price of these things? They're potentially releasing in November. In November, dude. In November.
I mean, I guess they could announce the launch price the day of launch.
I doubt it.
I mean, that is probably by definition the latest that they could give that information to us, because otherwise, how would we know how much money to bring?
Well, here's another thing that's happening, and this is kind of a side story. Sony is now taking emails pre-orders. So emails for the chance. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
No. I had seen something about that. Please tell me more.
Yeah, so they're effectively, and I did do this. I signed up. If you have a PlayStation Plus account, you sign up using your PS Plus or your PlayStation ID, and then you're entered in for the chance to pre-order a PlayStation 5. Meaning you're not guaranteed, but you're now in the running, right? And I guess they're going to make the determination based on your PlayStation activity, based on how many games you've purchased in the past, and that type of stuff. But we still don't know the price. We still don't know the release date. They're really building up hype and saying that they won't have enough and taking names in advance without any details. How do you feel about this?
Well, I mean, I'm glad that I'm observing from the outside and just saying, huh, okay. Throughout the
Yeah.
whole thing, I just
Yeah.
find it
Yeah.
I find it amusing, and I don't know. I mean, I feel like you and we're maybe jaded, cynical old men, Mr. Nice
Mm,
Guy, but
old.
yeah, very old. But I mean, I feel like it's more of a bother for people like us at this moment to not know. I don't know if this is a successful hype generation campaign, if that is indeed what they're going for. I just feel kind of tired to a certain extent.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything like this. I mean, even Kickstarters obviously tell people the price before they release, right? Every product that you know that's coming out, like these graphics cards we just talked about, they state the price. And I here's the thing, in sales, it's a good tactic to state the features and then state the price because once you state the features, people say, "Oh yeah, I need that. I really need that. It's so convenient and it's going to make my life easier or more fun or improved or it will give me a certain image, right?" Once you've sold them on it, then you can tell them the price. You don't lead with the price. I agree with that. But at some point, you got to tell them the price, Microsoft and Sony. And so I think this is a little bit excessive of a delay. That's just me. Chat, let us know what you think. Um, Mac, that's it for the news this week, man.
All right. Well, a goodly bit of news for sure. And now that we've taken a look at what's going on right now, let's take a little look into the past with some gaming history. Now, I've got 3 games that I want to talk about. I'll start with the most recent one first and work our way back in time. Starting with the release on the Xbox 360 in 2008 of Castle Crashers. On that,
Classic, beat 'em
yeah,
up.
awesome Xbox Live Arcade game. I mean, it came later on to other platforms, naturally, but it's, I mean, I didn't have a 360 until a little bit later in its life cycle, and mostly what I had it for was just for Left 4 Dead. But even in spite of not really having much in the way of Xbox Live Arcade going on in the 360 days, I still had enough friends that were fans of Castle Crashers that I've played through the game, and it's been a few years, but I've played through the game about 2 to 3 different times.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a really, really fun game. For those of you who don't know it, you can have up to 4 people. That was the maximum quantity supported. It had this cool artsy style, and it's sometimes cute, sometimes terrifying. And you didn't so much have PvP. Well, I guess you did have PvP, didn't you? But it was
I
only
don't
for
recall
some
this.
of the attacks. Like
P.
PvP?
What do you mean?
Player versus player? Like
You were fine.
you could damage the other players, like friendly
Oh,
fire.
I see. Okay, yeah, yeah. So you weren't actually like actively trying to kill him, but there was friendly fire, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sorry, my mistake. But yeah. So friendly fire was a thing, and I mean, there were a couple of those bosses that took a little bit of doing, but just potion up and go for it. Mr. Nice Guy, do you have any special memories of Castle Crashers?
You know what? Very, very few, man. It was a game. I think I played through it once and then I enjoyed it, but didn't pick it back up because it's really a game you got to play with people. And I had a group that I ran through it with that one time and then just did never get back into it. But great game. Great beat 'em up.
Yeah, a good one, and I feel like I don't remember exactly what the launch date of the Xbox Live Arcade was, but I feel like Castle Crashers was one of the early titles in there.
The first one that I remember is Splosion Man. I don't know if you remember that game. It was anyway. I won't get into it, but that's the earliest one I remember. What year? I don't even remember what year. What year was Castle Crashers?
2008.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty close to
Yeah,
when it launched.
feels like it. Feels like it. Well, moving right along, we'll head backward to the PS1 in 1998 with the release of Crash Bandicoot. Now, I of course can't. I of course have to mention it because Mrs. the Mac loves Crash Bandicoot, but I also quite like Crash Bandicoot. As we know, there was plenty of bad blood between Sony and Nintendo in those early days because of their joint efforts to develop the PlayStation as a Nintendo product in coordination with Sony until Nintendo dropped them. And according to at least some of the accounts, Sony was not read into the fact that their joint project wasn't going to go through until Nintendo basically was just like, nope, we're sticking with cartridges. And then Sony was just like, fine, we'll do our thing. But as Crash wound up being essentially the console mascot for the PS1, what was really interesting is I remember some of the very, shall we say, edgy, almost antagonistic television ads that Sony ran for the PlayStation with Crash Bandicoot, where they had like a guy dress up in a Crash Bandicoot costume, and with a megaphone go out and call out the plumber in the parking lot of Nintendo of America. And a couple other things like that. It was interesting because it was almost almost Sega Genesis era type of call-outs in their advertisements surrounding Crash Bandicoot. Very similar to the kind of, Sega does what Nintendo don't type thing. Definitely a little bit different, but hey. Now, Crash Bandicoot itself, though, a couple of just very quick interesting things, or at least just one quick interesting thing about it, is that in some of the interviews with the development team for, from Naughty Dog for the first Crash Bandicoot, they apparently took advantage of some of the things that they weren't supposed to do with the PlayStation 1 in order to free up extra processing space so that they could make all of the polygons and they could make all of the graphical things happen that they wanted to do inside of the game. There are moments in the game where they essentially take and hollow out code that's supposed to be reserved for the system processes, and
Okay.
they kind of steal chunks out of that so that they've got the extra bandwidth to run the graphics and the like that they wanted to do. It's very interesting, very technical, but very just like, oh man, I can't, you almost can't believe that it made it past the beta, or like whatever the approval process would have been for such a thing. But nonetheless, very cool. Lots of cool stories about that. And there are even some dev journals that you can that are up on YouTube that you can check out. Crash Bandicoot, well worth looking into the history of that one. Well, the third one I want to mention that came out this week in years past, we'd be looking at Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall, released on the PC in 1996. Mr. Nice Guy. Elder Scrolls, they obviously have a reputation for games with immersive and interesting worlds. I think that's fair.
Yeah, it's fair.
And I mean, they've got some pretty big worlds. Like, I mean, Skyrim, that's
unreal.
huge, right?
Unbelievable. Absolutely huge.
Yeah, no, that's totally cool. Daggerfall.
Where are you going with this, Mac?
Where am I going with this? You want to talk big world, right? The size of Daggerfall, released for the PC, is a map about the size of Great Britain. 80,000 square miles.
Wow.
Most of that area randomly generated terrain. So obviously it doesn't have the intentionality behind everything that you would find in, say, Skyrim or even Morrowind or the like. But even with it being 80,000 square miles, it is noteworthy that it's still not the biggest of the Morrowind series.
Of the Elder Scrolls series?
Sorry, of the Elder Scrolls series, my bad. I believe that title still goes to, I guess, the first one, Daggerfall?
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, Daggerfall is the one we're talking about right now.
Or sorry, not Daggerfall, Arena, I think is the first one, right?
Okay.
Pretty sure.
I don't
I might be off base. I know because I've got these things written down here, and I have a vague recollection of Elder Scrolls 1 Arena being larger than Daggerfall.
Wow.
But
Unreal.
but nonetheless, it's surprising that you could just take in, just on its own, 80,000 square miles of generated terrain, a map the size of Great Britain. That is a lot of stuff. And to make a game with that kind of information in it back in 1996, even doubly impressive. It would be impressive now, and it's even more impressive for back then. So yeah. Castle Crashers, Crash Bandicoot, Daggerfall, excellent games, each in their own way, and they have to be mentioned as part of video game history for this week, and that's just been a little bit of gaming history.
Dude, so educational. Can I get a hashtag education in the chat for all the stuff we just learned today with Mac? We're doing virtual learning here on the podcast today, Mac. Remote learning.
Bum, 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 bum.
The more you know. Fantastic. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our topic of the week, a segment where we talk about stuff that's relevant in gaming and give you our opinions on it. This week's news story, and I hope that my computer did not close it. It may have, so I may have to just do this off the top of the dome, Mac. I may have to just improvise this.
Sweet, let's do it.
We're going to do it. So we're going to be talking about Ubisoft this week, and it's a new game that they are going to be releasing, or that actually just released for mobile, called Tom Clancy's Elite Squad. Are you familiar with this game at all?
I am not, although is not Splinter Cell a Tom Clancy game?
It is, yeah, and it's a Ubisoft game as well. But this game is a totally new thing on mobile. It's a game supposedly, or rather allegedly, because I have not played it, where it's a group of protesters that are basically battling against the government. And if any of you have been following this game, you know that one of the acts of symbolism that they used was a logo that had a raised black fist. And effectively, it's a symbol that many of you know is used as part of the Black Power movement. And the thing that made this interesting this week is that the protesters in the game were kind of made out to be evil, were kind of made out to be bad, and anti-government and anti-blah, blah, blah. And so a lot of people, not saying that I was offended by it, but many were offended because apparently too many parallels were drawn in this game between the Black Lives Matter movement. And because the raised fist was in there, Ubisoft issued a statement and said, we will be removing that from the game. We apologize, and we did not mean to offend anyone. Now, Mac, here is where the story gets interesting. The head of that studio is the son of Yves Guillemot, who is the president of Ubisoft. And I was reading some tweets by Jason Schreier. I want to give credit where credit is due. Supposedly, this young man graduated college in 2016 and was immediately made head of the studio due to being the son of the CEO. So assuming that I didn't say anything wrong here, assuming that I didn't misquote Mac, I want to get here's the question that I have for you, and here's the question that I have for the chat before I give my opinions on this. If their intent was really to give a political message about the Black Lives Matter movement and how they feel about it, should they have backpedaled once people got offended? Or should they have just stood their ground? It's a free country. What do you think?
Well, you know, Mr. Nice Guy, I'm glad that you're asking me this, and
Yeah.
I appreciate all the extra, the extra context that we're throwing out there. But I think there's one important piece of context that is often overlooked when it comes to video games, and I am currently using /S or sarcasm quotation marks or whatever you want to use, but video games have never been political. Mr. Nice Guy. They've
Oh, right.
never tried. There's never been a video game, especially not a mainstream video game by any AAA company, that has ever really tried to make a statement about political
Never.
movements, past, present, or future. And I think that's this is the proper and appropriate way to react for the scandal, frankly, of there being anything even slightly political inside of a video game. None of those Deus Ex games. Nope. Only about just shooting folks in a cyberpunk future. Nothing to see there. Okay, we can end the sarcasm there. But
You're right, though.
yeah,
You're 100% right, and I'll give you a couple more examples if you don't mind me
sure,
stepping in for a
please.
second. So, Rockstar Games, almost every single one of their games contains it's just dripping with satire, right?
Mm-hmm.
Grand Theft Auto 5 is just satire about California and about people who live that lifestyle. The Outer Worlds, which was one of my favorite, yeah, exactly. The Outer Worlds, which was one of my favorite games of 2018, was effectively a satire on corporate America. Um, and making fun of that and the way that things go. And so I don't like that Ubisoft intentionally or unintentionally painted Black Lives Matter movement as a terrorist group, because that's what it really came down to. And here, I'll tell you why. I'll get political for a minute. It's not a terrorist group. It's a human rights group. Now, with any human rights group, there's going to be rogues, and there's going to be people who choose to associate themselves with that group that are not really a part of that group, in an attempt to make them look bad, right? When there's peaceful protests, there will likely be some who choose to come out and riot. It doesn't mean that the peaceful protesters are bad people. I'll also say this: Black Lives Matter, in my opinion, is not a political group. It's a human rights group. To me, fighting for human rights is not a political issue. It is a rights issue, and there's really only one side. If you're not on the side of human rights, then you're on the wrong side.
Would you
That's
say
how I
you're
feel
on the
about that.
side of human wrongs?
You're on the side of human wrongs, and that's exactly how I feel about that. Now, if Ubisoft really feels that BLM is a terrorist group and they wanted to satirically make fun of them, I don't agree with that, and I would not buy their game, and I would probably never buy another one of their games, even if it's Splinter Cell. I'm being 100% serious. But at the same time, if that's how they really felt, maybe they should have stood their ground. If you believe that something is bad, stand your ground and present it in a way that's not infringing on anyone else's rights. You do have to be willing to deal with the consequences of making statements like that, though. And so I don't know how I feel about them backpedaling. That's just my thoughts. Anything else you want to say about this, Mac?
I think you said it better than I ever could. But I 100% agree. I think that if it was a statement they were trying to make, I would respect it. I would respect the statement more if you stood by it. But backpedaling, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe, whoever is in charge over there let something slip through that wasn't supposed to. I mean, there's any number of things that could go on. I feel like anytime you get enough people involved in a project, there are just that many more ways for the project to go sideways in unexpected and even, dare I say, unintended ways. But at this point in time, I just feel like I'm with you there. If it was something that they were intending, should have stuck with it. But, seems like there's just too much going on for me to really disentangle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree 100%. And what did people say in the chat? Let's see. Galvatron said Spec Ops: The Line was political. It is one of the most anti-military, anti-interventionist pieces of fiction I've ever seen.
And as an art form, right? Art has very often been political. We know that video games are art. It's not a question, it's a statement, and it's also it's factual, philosophical, and legally correct. As we've discussed many times in this space, but I mean, why should we expect anything less from video games than to challenge what we think and how we feel about something in an interactive method? This is a wonderful form of of conveying ideas and the importance of. So
Yeah, so I'll give one kind of example real quick. I like this discussion that we're having. I like stand-up comedy. I love watching different comedians and the things that they have to talk about. I would rather watch a comedian who is okay but has something to say than a comedian who's killer but just talks about food or talks about going on airplanes. I like when somebody has a message, when someone has something to say. And it's hard because you almost always know as a comedian that if you have a message, it's going to be divisive if it's political, right? Or if you're taking a stance on a popular issue. But I have more respect for those who do than those who just take the easy route and just talk about balloons or whatever, observational stuff. And I feel the same way about video games. I love a dumbed down game. Like I'll play a dumb game where I'm just shooting stuff for an hour, right? Asteroids, or some game like that. But I would much rather play a game that has a point, a game like The Last of Us Part 2 that teaches us something about revenge. A game like Deus Ex, right? A game like The Outer Worlds that teaches us about, different views on corporate America and allows you, the player, to make decisions as to what side of the line you want to be on. And so Ubisoft, if this is how they feel, I almost wish that they would have left it, and then they could have seen, well, hey, people really just chose to buy this, or they didn't, right? And then they said, hey, the people who are choosing to buy this, maybe they're people who we don't want to be associated with, or maybe they are, and they could kind of take it that way. But I feel like they kind of took the weak road.
Yeah.
So, well, I think that covers that, Mac. That's been our topic of the week.
All right. Well, now let's take a look at a crowdfunding effort that's trying to get off of the ground. We call this Kick or Kickstart, and you have an important job to do. We're going to post a link in the chat to the project. We're going to discuss the virtues and the vices live here. And then at the end, we're going to give our own determination and encourage you here, as well as those of you listening after the fact, to let us know whether you think it should be kick-started, because it's worth it, or kicked out of here. So kick or kickstart. Today we are looking at Lightbreak, a story-driven musical game. So I feel like last time, so a couple of weeks ago, I feel like, we had a music sort of game, a rhythm game that we were talking about. And maybe I'm just on a musical kick. Maybe it's been speaking to me, but this muse certainly caught my attention. It's a puzzle music game. They're looking for $16,000 to start to fully kickstart the game. It's a little over $4,000 at the current moment. There is a $20 buy-in for the game. There was a $15 early bird for the game. The current console releases, the current releases that they're planning is a PC release, but they would like to release on the Switch, on PlayStation, as well as Steam VR, and I can certainly see how a VR game for this would have, some good solid potential. But yeah, so Lightbreak, they've got some interesting visuals, some quite splendid music, and in the game you play a girl named Ava, who has lost her voice, as long as I followed correctly.
Interesting.
And she uses the music. She uses a sort of mystical instrument and uses the music to basically share what happened, share her memories, communicate and the like. And so you'll go through circumstances where, you'll need to tune the instrument, kind of like you would need to do if you were gearing up in Rock Band, or whichever the Rock Band is that you use an actual guitar.
Sure, I know what you're talking about. Rocksmith.
Yeah, Rocksmith. That's the one. And to play at and to play the music. So yeah, Mr. Nice Guy, tell me how does it strike you?
I mean, I feel like this is one of those games where if I was in an elevator with these people, they would not be able to explain it to me within the length of the elevator ride, because it's just not very straightforward what they're trying to do. I'm still honestly a little bit confused, even just having heard you explain it.
Yeah, it is one of those things where, and to be clear here, I don't, that's not always as much of a Deal breaker for me, people being unable to explain something satisfactorily in an elevator pitch, mostly because I feel like I struggle often with
Sure, me too.
getting things out there in a understandable and quick way. Mad thanks to anybody who's listening to this poor rambly soul on this podcast, day in or week in and week out.
We love y'all. We love y'all.
But I have to admit I like the look of the game. I like how they're putting things together. And I wish that I had a chance, and I'll give a little something away. I wish I had had a chance to play the playable demo this afternoon. Sadly, I was a little bit preoccupied. So I do know that it has one. And if the, actual explanation, the poor explanation that I'm trying to give, or the explanation that you see on the Kickstarter isn't exactly doing it for you, the playable demo gives you an option to experience it, and maybe that will do better than I could. So, yeah, and to be clear, I feel like you're probably not wrong in the sense that, 16,000 seems like an achievable goal for a project like this.
Sure, yeah.
But, having only attained, 4,000 so far seems like perhaps there is a little bit of an issue with clarity of messaging inside of it.
Well, and I don't know if they really realize how much it costs to get a game on some of these individual platforms and how much time it takes, because they only want 16,000 and they're initially putting it on PC and Mac, which is great. But they say eventually we also want to get it on Switch and PlayStation and Xbox. Oh, and in VR. And I don't know if they realize, from what I've read, how hard it is to get a game VR capable.
Well,
You know, to
mhm. Well, it
to
is.
go from 2D to 3D. I don't think it's really that easy and can be done within this budget.
Well, it is listed as being stretch goals. And when I was
Okay.
first looking through, I didn't see where the stretch goal point was for them to add it. But I think it's just, yeah, currently we plan to add more languages as stretch goals, other platforms as stretch goals. Yeah, I don't see a specific stretch goal listed as where they will feel like they have the resources. So I don't know, as we can definitively say that they don't know how difficult or how much money it takes. They might know full well how much money it takes, and were kind of hoping that this would really take off so they could add
Yeah.
those goals out there.
Yeah, you know what? I'll say this. It's not derivative of everything else that we're getting right now. It's not a Metroidvania. It's not a shooter. It's not a 16-bit platformer, which we get so many of those, right? It's something that's different. And so for that, I will give them credit.
Mm-hmm. And of course, no matter how it shakes out, we always wish the best for everybody, for
Right.
everybody's project that shows up on Kick or Kickstart. Creating is tough, and not enough people are trying. So you'll at least get that from us. Well, I think, Mr. Nice Guy, I think we should go for what we think with our vote of Kick or Kickstart. All of you here with us live, please weigh in the chat.
Yeah, so did you want to go first, Mac? Please.
Sure. So I'm going to have to say Kick. I think the intro price point of $20 is a little bit too high for for this game. Again, I haven't played the demo. I downloaded it, but I didn't get the chance to finish with that, or to get started rather. So I reserve the right to change my opinion. But I like music games, and this one sadly hasn't appealed to me as much as I could have hoped.
Yeah, honestly, man, I feel bad. There's nothing that appeals to me about this at all. And once again, we like to support people. We want this to succeed. It's just a matter of if we think it's worth giving money to. And I can't say that it is at this point. So I gotta say Kick.
All right, and for those of you here with us, Spennis, I like the concept, and the graphics are simplistic and seems like our very appealing minimalistic approach. I think they are setting themselves at a pretty interesting position, but I feel the backing's just not there, as the genre is just a bit too niche. It is a solid title for on the go, but everything seems like the sloppy approach in the delivery. Price point's a little high for the look of it, just does not do enough for me, and kick it. Let's see. Ish Mobile, however, is on with the kickstart, likes the uniqueness, and has to say kickstart on that. We've got a kickstart from Metzgirl as well, and a kick from Kane. So it's a very divided thing. So yeah, so we'll call this a Schrodinger's kickstart type of situation. It is both kickstarted and kicked. But thank you kindly, everybody, for weighing in. That's been Kick or Kickstart.
Dope. And now it is time for Nerdflex. Woo-hoo-hoo. A segment where you, the viewers, try to stump the host, and you barely ever do. Well, last week, Mac, we had Spennis on, and I know he had some questions. But I said, Spennis, you can't ask your questions on a week that you're on the show, man, because you know the answer to those trivia questions. So I believe Spennis is here in the chat today. Spennis, if you and anyone else in the chat have those questions ready to go, please type them in the chat. Mac and I will try to answer them.
And while we wait, I will just throw out there that it is time for another sound test. So as you guys have the opportunity to to quiz us, this is our time to turn the tables around on you. I've selected a sound from somewhere, some win, somehow in Nvidia games. We will play that for you now. Pause for inserting the sound after the thing, and there we go. I hope you listened carefully, because you need to tweet at 2NerdsInAPod with the hashtag SoundTest and identify this episode 155, with your best guess. Winner gets a perler lovingly made by my own hands sent to your door.
Is that the perler that they get?
Well, sure, if they want it, they can take this one of my Mega Man perlers. I'm a fan of Mega Man. I didn't know if you could tell.
I did not know. What's that picture behind you?
I couldn't say for sure. But it's one of those things where we wish you all luck. We're counting on you. Make us proud and solve that sound test. So let's get on with the Nerdflex.
Let's do it. So, Mac, I'm going to start with a question from the test bank, and then as questions come in, please let me know as they come in the chat.
Certainly. We've got one from Spennis already.
Well, let's just start with Spennis's then. Let's do it.
Okay, let's start with that. In Super Mario 64, there is a second star you get in the Princess Slide. What is the required time you must be under to get this special star?
In the Princess Slide. Oh, yes. Okay. Do you remember this, Mac?
I remember getting it, but I don't remember what the time was, sadly.
Yeah, so I'm trying to think, because I feel like 60 seconds is not the right answer. That would be too easy. I'm trying to remember like how long it took to do that. I feel like it was... This is the one where you could fall off the edge, right? If you jumped. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I feel like a good time on it was like 18 seconds.
Well, you could, to your advantage, you could actually use a sort of falling off the slide to kind of cut some corners. But man, that's roughly that's roughly.
Well, maybe if I hum the music, then I can kind of remember, and it'll bring back some memories. Dun, 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 dun. Is that the music that went with it?
I don't remember. It's been a little while. And to be fair,
Go ahead.
Oh, to be fair, when I played through Super Mario 64, I did it on stream. Because I was a fool. Well, actually, I didn't even request it. Somebody else was just like, hey, if you donate $120, Mac will get all 120 stars. And then it almost immediately happened. So it was interesting. But for a lot of it, I actually didn't have headphones on. So I didn't hear a lot of the music. So the audio cue isn't helping is what I'm saying.
Dang it. Well, I'm going to say... I feel like 18 seconds is too long.
Yeah, I feel like it's too short. I'm going to say you have to get underneath 30 seconds.
I'm gonna go with 29. Just kidding.
Price is
No,
Right rules.
I'm gonna go with 24.
Okay.
24 seconds.
I think we have gotten it wrong for sure, but Spennis, let us know how we've done. I have no confidence in my answer. Well, why don't, in the meantime,
move on to
we've got another
a.
question in the chat from AlexMan47.
What up, Alex? Man,
And we can go for that next. Although I do kind of want to, before we go,
I want to know what. Yeah, I want to know
Yeah.
what Spennis's answer is first. Spennis, hit us up in the chat with that answer, brother. Dude, I miss Mario 64. I feel like Mario 64 would be a really, really good one to have remastered. I just feel like the graphics don't hold up. All other Mario games, if you want to play them, you can just play them on old hardware. Mario 64 is an eyesore. Nintendo, give us a remaster. Has Spennis typed in the chat yet, or is he making us sweat it out?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I'm take care, Rolf. It's actually 21 seconds, which is stricter than what you guys had, but still rather lenient, as if you do it legitimately without jumping down the slide is still doable. I am so way off, but you were pretty darn close. What, me? With 30? No, you were close with the 24 seconds. That's pretty darn nice. So, well, we missed that one. So we'll move on to the next one. This one's from AlexMan. The question comes, in the original Legend of Zelda game, Spectacle Rock is found on Death Mountain. In Breath of the Wild, it's located in what region?
Oh boy. Y'all are coming with the tough ones today.
It's true.
Next week we may need to demand multiple choice.
Well, I mean, we do actually ask for multiple choice, but nobody listens when we ask anyway.
No,
so.
It's all good. We appreciate y'all posting questions, period. I have no idea what region.
Well, let's see. There's the mountain region, which I feel like was named Hebra or something. There's the Gerudo Desert. There's the lightning-y region, where that, kind of in the south.
There's the frost.
There's the high mountain pass in the southeast. Oh, gosh. Spectacle Rock. You see, the problem is I don't remember there being a Spectacle Rock in Breath of the Wild.
Well, I think he was saying in the original?
Yeah, in the original.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
But in Breath of the Wild, it's located in what region? I mean, I don't think it's Death Mountain, and I don't remember the names of the areas well enough, but I'd say the Hebra, I want to say, region is the only thing. I'm gonna go
with Gerudo Desert.
Okay, sweet. So hopefully one of us actually gets that correct. Oh, we've got choices now. A, Great Plateau, B, Tal Tal Mountain Ridge, C, Forest of Time, or D, Gerudo Ridge region. Well, given those, I'm going to go with... you're going with D, Gerudo? I guess
I'll go with Gerudo.
I'll have to go with either Great Plateau or Tal Tal Mountain Ridge. I'm going to go with A, Great... I'm going to go with B, Tal Tal Mountain Ridge.
Nice. Watch, it's going to be C, because when you're taking a test...
No.
C is the most common.
If it's not B and D, then it's definitely A because I wanted to go for A and then I switched to B. Remember?
I'm gonna stick with D. I'm gonna stick with D as in Delta.
Okay. Let us know what the answer is.
Gerudo. This is a good question, Alex. Man, thanks for submitting it, man. Breath of the Wild 2, Nintendo. All Nintendo-based questions today. We need a Breath of the Wild 2. Give us that announcement. Don't take 2020 off, Nintendo. People are making jokes about you.
It's the Gerudo region. That's why I was singing. You got it right.
I know. I did. Fantastic.
The correct answer is Gerudo region.
I should be more excited. I got it right.
There you
I
go.
Did it.
You did it. I should have never doubted you for an instant. Man, I just don't recollect.
It's been so long since I've played that game.
Yeah.
Like I played it right when the Switch came out.
Well, I mean, for my part, I played it basically over the holiday, but still, it's too long.
Yeah. Well, do we have another question in the chat, or should we move to one of our tests?
Let's hit the test bank.
It's ironic because it's another Zelda question, and it's kind of a fun one. I do not know the answer.
Okay.
According to the Hyrule Historia, which game is chronologically the earliest? This is a great question.
I couldn't speak to what Hyrule Historia says is the earliest chronologically, but I feel like it's Skyward Sword.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like that's the one.
I was going to go with the obvious answer and say Link's Awakening, just because he's awakening and it's, he doesn't remember anything. Or even A Link to the Past, because he travels back.
I'm gonna stick with Skyward Sword. It's the only it's one of the few Zelda games that I've never played. But I feel like I've heard somewhere that that's the earliest chronologically.
I feel like Link's Awakening is not the right answer, but I'm gonna go with it anyway.
Go with it anyway, man.
All right, let's see what the right answer is. Skyward Sword, Mac.
Yes.
Excellent work. So we got 2 for 3 this week.
Yeah, 2 for 3. I mean, gosh, thank goodness you were on fire. You were on fire with that first one. I was way off base. But
teamwork makes the dream work. Well, let's keep things moving. Thanks for giving us questions for Nerdflex, everybody. Make sure to get back to us with the answer to that sound test.
Indeed. So we'll move on to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
Now, it's going to be just a short one today because all I really have for you right now is an update. There were some cool and interesting other legalese things that came up, but I feel like the thing everybody's talking about, the thing everyone wants to know about is Epic v. everybody. And we spent some time talking, breaking down various things. I even went so far as to put out a bonus episode out there that was just dedicated to the temporary restraining order that Epic asked for. And there were some cool things that happened, like while I was on vacation, the people over at Microsoft, Phil Spencer, head
of Xbox.
Yeah, yep. Head of Xbox was like, "Hey, we support what Epic is asking for." Which, I mean, at the end.
Can I offer a quick clarification?
Please.
So Phil Spencer, because I think Spennis and I talked about this last week, he said that they did not support Apple blocking the Unreal Engine because it is made by Epic, because that would hurt other developers. So that was Microsoft's support.
Yes. Well, indeed. Great clarification. And to that end, it is likely that comments from people like Phil Spencer and other actual people who submitted, who submitted statements to the court probably helped in the case, because the ruling on the temporary restraining order, if you remember from those episodes, they asked, "Hey, Your Honor, we need you to put Fortnite back up on the App Store as it was, where people could pay us directly. We need you to stop Apple from doing anything to us, and we need you to keep them from getting rid of our developer account so that the Unreal Engine can still be supported." The judge said no on the first two and said yes on the third, and in large chunks, some of the things that we talked about in legalese, not that they got it from us or anything silly like that, but that is just goes to show, Mr. Nice Guy, we had some well-reasoned thoughts on the subject. They said, "Are you kidding? We're going to legally try and force Apple to do something when you, Epic, could literally flick a switch and make this problem go away?" They said, "No. Self-inflicted harm is not going to be considered for injunctive relief here. We're not going to restrain them for something you could easily fix." And they're like, "Furthermore, the important thing is we would be taking, even if we did this, we'd be taking it back to the status quo. echoing an argument that Apple made in the response to the temporary restraining order, and the last agreeable position everybody was in was before the breach of contract. So no. But they did say, hey, on this other one, on the Unreal Engine, it is likely to impact third developers in a way that is unfortunate, but that's not the way that the judge went out on it. Oh, sorry, brief tangent. The judge did also address the pages upon pages of testimonials, if you will, of basically Twitter and Facebook comments that Epic put out there. Yeah, and the way that they addressed it was very much, it is no doubt that Epic fans, that fans of Fortnite are fans of Fortnite. However, that really has no bearing here. So, no thanks. But yeah, it basically was just like, okay, great, you have fans. Congratulations. That's not a good argument, guys. Anyway, back to the thing that did make legal sense in there. They argued, and persuasively enough to get the temporary restraining order in that one component, that Apple's contract with with Epic, that surrounds Fortnite might not. It doesn't have a sort of cross-breach sort of clause in there. So the judge was like, yeah, it seems like there's a good argument to say that the contracts you signed with your development tools are distinct and separate from the contracts you signed for Fortnite itself. As a brief aside, there is an argument that I wish Apple had made in return there by saying, you can't make you can't breach our agreement over here without also using our software to make a video game that breaks the rules. So they broke the rules here by using the tools to break the rules over here, which is certainly an argument that I wish Apple had made. But as far as I could see it, in the hundreds of pages of back and forth, Apple didn't make that argument. Judge granted temporary relief in the sense of just walking that back. We aren't going to hear anything on this for a little while, as they've set a hearing date for, if I recall, later in September. But for the time being, Epic is out and Unreal Engine stays. And also, Apple booted Epic, not just like they did where they removed it from the store, but they also removed it from entirely. So that certainly has escalated quickly, and it'll be interesting to see where it goes from there, because there are clauses inside of the contracts that read termination. They can terminate their agreement like that. They just have to give notice and let it go. So yeah, Epic v. everybody, definitely interesting. It's going to be a long fight. And furthermore, there is even one of the things that was interesting is they kind of moved this over to a separate court, a court that was already hearing a case somewhat similar since 2019, since earlier in 2019, that was about some kind of a sports game, and they made some of the same arguments. I will just highlight one line from the judge when they talked about, in responding to the temporary restraining order. The judge said, and I'm going to paraphrase, they said along the lines of, while there will be experts who argue whether or not 30% Apple's cut is anti-competitive, there are no reasonable experts who would argue that the use and access to their platform is worth 0% on any transaction. And in essence, by giving your own direct payment and discounting it, you are trying to give them a 0% cut for their hosting your stuff and for doing their things. The arguments, definitely, we're going to make those arguments. We're going to have them. But, for you to walk into this court and say it is damage to you, Epic, for you not to be able to cut them out entirely from their store, from their platform, come on, guys. Come on. Quit being so greedy. So, anyway, that's been a little bit of legalese. I know it's all over the place, and that's all the time we have for that. And that's our show, except for, well,
One last
one last thing. What we've been watching and what we've been playing. And Mr. Nice Guy, I have to throw out there that I've been playing this game
Yeah.
oh gosh, what's the name? Chained Echoes. It was something that we featured as a kickstart a while back. It did get
Ooh,
kickstarted, and
nice.
they released a demo since Gamescom week is currently going on, and I've put a few hours into it, and I'm getting the hang of it, and I really like it. It's a, 16, 18-bit style RPG action, or yeah, just more of an RPG, turn-based, really fun.
Nice. Well, yeah, let us know in the chat, everybody, if you're here live, the stuff you've been watching and playing, because we're always looking for cool, nerdy stuff to get into. Now, Mac, you've been playing that. Have you gotten to watch anything lately? I know you just had a great vacation, so you probably didn't have as much time to watch stuff as normally would, right?
I've been watching Lucifer Season 5, recently
Oh,
released on Netflix, and I can't do a Lucifer voice very well, but he is very charming.
nice. Well, what have I been playing? I feel like I played something new. Oh, I bought Steam sale on Rainbow Six Siege, and that's a game. It's funny because I bought it. It's a Ubisoft game, and then of course Ubisoft lost their mind and did all the crazy stuff we talked about earlier. So I want my $10 back. Steam, just kidding. No, it's a fun game, and it's 5 years old and still live and kicking. And there's a competitive mode where you can play against newbies. So I had fun with that. Very strategic. I love it. Team fight tactics with my brother on a regular basis. Now, yesterday, Mac, I dove back into Fall Guys with Spennis, and we played it on my stream for a couple hours, and we did really, really well. It's a fun game. It's so frustrating. I don't think that it's a Game of the Year candidate, but I do think that it's a unique battle royale. Are you familiar with Fall Guys? I'll give you the elevator pitch if you're not.
I mean, I've heard of it. I've seen a couple of streams. Not my thing, though.
Yeah, it's effectively like if a Japanese game show was turned into a video game. Like you're running around, people are trying to knock you off the level. There's all kinds of obstacles and things going on, but it's fun. So I've been playing that. And as far as what I've been watching, I've watched a little more High Score on Netflix. I watched the Dungeons and Dragons episode, which I will not say anything about it. You didn't know there was Dungeons and Dragons episode,
I
did
did
you?
not know.
Oh my gosh, Mac. You are in for a treat. It's funny, and I will not say anything about it because I want you to go in blind.
Okay.
But what I will say generically is, as I'm watching this documentary, I'm thinking this is a Maction creation. Like, as for someone who does a weekly segment on a talk show called Gaming History, like this show was made for you. And then I saw there was a D&D episode, and I was like, oh yeah, definitely for him. I'll leave it at that.
Awesome.
I will not tell you anything. But anyways, so that was really good, and I'll leave it at that. I've been watching a few different things, but that's the main stuff. What are people in the chat into, Mac? What do we got?
Well, we've got some recommendations for things like High Score, Yu-Gi-Oh! Let's see, some more High Score. Iron Man 2, a bit of Fry and Laurie. That's pretty good. Some 2001, Once Upon a Time. And Ad Astra and Black Panther. Wakanda Forever.
By the way, rest in peace, Chadwick Boseman.
Indeed.
For those who do not know, he passed away. Very, very sad. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what people are watching.
Nice. Now, as far as what people are playing, we got Yu-Gi-Oh!, Fall Guys. Oh, no, wait, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is probably what he's watching, huh?
Yeah.
Although there is a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game.
It's true.
Fall Guys, Madden, MLB, and Ghost of Tsushima. Insurgency Sandstorm and Minecraft. And Horizon's Gate. Whoops. Alvoria Tactics, Voidspire, Inmost, and Rogue Legacy 2. Breath of the Wild, Savage Worlds, and D&D. Witcher 3, Carrion. Yeah, so Galvatron's playing Carrion, and he says, this game really needs a map and better controls. I agree with that 100%. How do you have a Metroidvania without a map? And the game was killer. Like, I loved the game. It's such a unique concept, but there's no map. So you're backtracking so much. But it's a great game other than that. Horizon Zero Dawn, God of War. And that is it this week, Mac.
Yeah.
What do you say we wrap it up?
We should wrap it up. We have been Two Nerds in a Pod. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. You're the greatest viewers on Twitch. You're the greatest listeners on insert podcast platform name here. But above all, you're just the best. Keep being nerdy. Keep being awesome. And we'll see you next time. Same bat time. Same bat rhymes. Same bat channel. See ya.
They know what you meant. Bye.
Yeah, they know what I mean.